up, FC fam? Braun, Kratz in his usual bunker, and I am pleased to be joined by the 2025 Chicago White Sox manager, AJ Pierzynski, with us on FT. Bravo.
Don't forget about us little people.
Yeah.
Neither one of you have any shot.
Will you still give us interviews?
Probably not.
Ah.
First of all, yeah. I mean, I don't know. It depends on what your definition of serious is.
Wait, for the podcast crowd, that report says AJ Pierzynski is a serious candidate to manage the White Sox in 2025. That's from 670 The Score, but really coming from our boy Bob Nightingale from USA Today.
Yeah. Listen, I mean, I was in Chicago all week, had no discussions about being the manager. Would I take the managerial job? I mean, I would love to interview for it or possibly have an opportunity to try to fix this organization because it's not good right now, or at least help fix it somehow. But yeah, this is interesting to me that this kind of came out of nowhere. And yeah, I don't know, where it came from or what, but they have a manager. So I don't know where they're thinking they're just going to, I guess they're going to fire the manager. People know things that no one else knows there because Pedro Grifol sure acts like he's still the manager. And I mean, I don't know.
Did something happen lately? Like what would lead to...
They lost 14 games in a row? They already did that this year once. So.
That'll lead to that. I can play this role. I think it's fair to say there might be a change at the manager position, but to take the next layer, you haven't been interviewed?
No. They have a manager.
I know.
I haven't gone out of my way to talk to anybody about this job. I haven't done anything. I mean, I was in town. For a golf tournament. I did the Cubs game last Saturday. I did the White Sox game on Saturday. And the way that went, I surely wasn't treated like somebody that they wanted to be around for a long time.
I think there's a better chance you're coaching in like Alabama or Georgia or one of the states that you've been to lately. Yes, Kratz.
I was just going to say, what's the better chance? That you're going to be the vice president or that you are going to be the manager of the Chicago White Sox?
I mean, it's probably a better chance of me being the vice president at this point. But, I mean, listen, is there interest to be a manager of a major league team? Of course. I mean, I think Kratz would say the same thing. But again, I mean, the White Sox have a manager. They're not, I mean, I haven't heard any rumors of him getting let go anytime soon. And, so for people and this is not a knock on Bob, but, listen, people are running for it, are running with this story. But again, I waited to come on here to discuss it, but no one has approached me about this job. No one has talked to me about this job. I heard some other names that were mentioned for possibly getting this job, but it wasn't me. But yeah, I mean, if a team calls you to be their manager, it's hard to not at least accept an interview and at least sit down and talk to them about it because there's only 30 of those jobs and they're pretty coveted.
Mm-hmm. So there you have it, America and the world. AJ is not in serious talks to become the manager of the Chicago White Sox. Confirmed. It's my first report and my only report of trade deadline season, and it has nothing to do with trades. So now shall we talk trades?
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Okay. Charge the Mound. And it's presented by MLB, 9 innings, 24. All right, let's get to all the trades. To me, I'd like to start with the Rays in general because they are controlling the market to an extent right now with the way that they're dealing left and right. Kratz, we left it with right before the Eflin trade was the last time that we were on for a show, besides the Jazz Chisholm breaking news show that we did on YouTube, which you can check out, and we'll get to the Jazz trade coming up in a moment. Are you surprised the Rays decided to go down this direction and go this hard on Cellar City? And
no.
The way that they operate as a business continues?
I'm not surprised by anything because the Rays do it better than anybody.
Yeah.
They rebuild, retool. I mean, if you look at who they've traded, they traded Isaac Paredes, they got Christopher Morel back, and they got Biggie, who comes out to Biggie, which is awesome. When he
he's supposed to be good, Hunter Biggie.
I mean, he throws 100 and he's got a nasty slider. So I'm not surprised at all because what the Rays do is they take their team and they evaluate. They're the best self-evaluators there are in this sport. they look at their team and they say, we're not good enough, or we're not, whether it's this year or next year down the road, and they say, all right, how can we flip it? And they're like, oh, Zach Eflin, he's more valuable. We can get pieces from the Orioles. Okay, let's do it. Oh, Isaac Paredes, we can do this. Adam, we can do this. Whoever they trade, they're always like, all right, well, we have a – if you look at their rotation for next year, if everyone comes back healthy, they don't need Zach Eflin. It's going to be strong, right? Their bullpen has always been plus because they figure out how to get the most out of guys. So, listen, I'm not surprised at all. I mean, I think the bigger thing is that the Cubs made this move. The Cubs made this move. I know he has multiple years of control, but Isaac Paredes obviously made the All-Star team this year. They obviously didn't like Christopher Morel anymore. He kind of had run his course, but is this the bat in the middle of the order that can get the Cubs back in the playoff race? I'm not sure it is.
I thought it was a chance for them to strike. I thought it was a chance for them to see what happens next year. He was available, and I think his price is going to be there, and I think they were done with Christopher Morel, which to me, the side of the trade that is huge is what are the Rays going to unlock with Morel? And we're watching the video of him saying bye to his coaches, and you sit there and you go, okay, what can they unlock with him? What did the Rays unlock with Yandy Diaz when he came over from Cleveland? He was a line drive hitter. He was a guy who wouldn't elevate the ball. Started elevating the ball, got MVP votes. What can they do with Morel? And anytime they pick up a pitcher, you're sitting there going, man, maybe we shouldn't trade that guy, or maybe we should actually call him up if you're the Cubs. But they exactly what AJ said. They're great self-evaluators, but they also live in a market that does not give them very much flack for making moves. They're going to continue to be the Rays. They do it well, but for other organizations to covet what they do, I just don't. It doesn't work. It doesn't work because you're gonna get if you're this close to the wild card in New York, Philly, Boston, and you do this, it's not going to work out. You're going to get roasted, and so I think teams are afraid of making these types of moves. But it works for the Rays.
Isn't it justified to roast them? If you're a fan and you're into following certain players, which is more important than ever, you really can never do that. You can't buy a jersey. And the team has how many World Series titles? Just going to play the opposite side here. How many times have they won? It's not like they were born yesterday at this point. Have they had any World Series titles?
No.
So has this worked to that point? Have they built a roster that can win a tournament in October? No. Also, right now, we're in a period that might not last long, but it seems like wildcard teams have a pretty damn good chance to get to the World Series and surprise some people. They're a few games out. I'm not saying this was going to be the year, but they are a few games out. Did we think the Diamondbacks were going to be in the World Series last year?
No, I don't think
even
anybody.
In mid-August? No.
No, but listen, this is a move, again, for the Rays and the Cubs for down the road, right? For both of them. What are they going to lock from Christopher Morel? Hopefully contact.
Yeah, but dude, Paredes is their best hitter this year.
I understand that, but they're also, 2 games over 500, 1 game over 500? Do you think they're catching the Orioles?
No, but
are they catching the
same
Yankees?
range as the Mariners?
Okay, who has a better team on paper, the Mariners or the Rays?
The Mariners.
Okay.
But because they're fixing the offense, that's part of the puzzle. If the Rays started buying, maybe things change for them too, and they make a run. That's the problem. Also for the Cubs, I mean, we'll get into the Cubs side, but I think they were kind of fed up with Morel. Like they put a lot of stock into him this year, and it just didn't click for them. Mm-hmm. So change of scenery might help, but the defense was terrible, and he wasn't hitting that well.
I know. Contact. Are they going to find contact? Can the Rays get contact out of him? That's going to be the question. Can they get defense out of him? I don't know. His best position is really second base, I think. Yeah. But he doesn't want to play second base. So maybe outfield, but they have Yandy Diaz. I don't know what they're going to do with him. It's going to be, Biggie's going to slot right into the back end of their rotation or back end of their bullpen.
Sure, but Paredes is an all-star.
There's
great player this year. I know he's been their best player. He's been a above average hitter. He's slumped in the last few weeks.
He is a dead pull fly ball hitter.
Yes,
that's it. He is a dead pull fly ball hitter.
He's not the cornerstone of a lineup.
Okay, but a huge upgrade for the Cubs, I will say.
From Morel?
Yeah, right now?
Yeah, I think
he's a much more developed player. He's a much more matured player. Morel's raw still.
Morel's going to fit in perfectly with the Cubs the way they are now. The Rays, excuse me. the way the Rays let people be themselves.
Yes.
Like
That's it. That's it right there.
When the way the Rays let people be themselves, and he's got like all the stuff on his glove, and he does the funny eye black and all that stuff. If you're not performing in certain places, that can wear a little thin. But in the Rays, they're like, yeah, do more of it.
Yeah, especially because they lost some of it just now too. Paredes was really fun. Obviously, Randy was Randy. We're going to cover this side of it with Sahadev Sharma coming up soon with the Cubs and Isaac Paredes. So let's run through a few more trades. It's a small one, but Michael Lorenzen goes to the Kansas City Royals. That's the freshest trade we have right now. Walter Pennington, who's a pretty good reliever in AAA, kind of came out of nowhere. And for the Royals, they had some starting rotation depth that enables them to put someone like Alec Marsh into the bullpen, help with spot starts, whatever. You start to rack up the starting rotation for the Royals. Lugo, Reagan, whose velo's down a little bit, so there's some concerns there. Singer, Waka, and now you've got Lorenzen. And then Ken wrote, with the trade of Lorenzen, keep in mind the Rangers pitching staff continues to get healthier, right? So they could do this. They wanted bullpen help. Scherzer, Dunning both back. Bradford, Molly, DeGrom on the way.
Well, it's good. It's a nice pickup for the Royals.
Yeah, some innings.
Whether they put him in the bullpen or start him, he gives them innings. He's a veteran guy. He's done it. And that's it. I mean, listen, it's a nice pickup for the Royals. They're striking. They're in wild card range. Heck, they're in division range right now. So why not go for it if you're the Royals?
They need another bat. Mm-hmm. They need some help, a little more offense, and preferably another reliever. I know they're still in that market too, Kratz.
They need strikeouts relieving. And if you're not going to, at the trade deadline, if you're not going to make that big splash for a starting pitcher, I would say right now the best available would be Tyon and Flaherty if they're available. But like if you're not making that huge splash, add to your depth in case, because you just need more guys. And I think there's no better in-case guy than Lorenzen. He's shown it. He's shown what he did help the Phillies last year through the no-hitter, got traded over there, kind of faltered at the end, but it was his first year starting for a while. So you sit there and you say, okay, we just picked up more valuable pieces.
What about Jason Adam to the Padres?
I like this move for both teams.
Me too.
I mean, the Rays got a little bit back for a reliever, late eighth inning guy, basically, not really a guy that's your closer. And the Padres need another bullpen arm to go with some of those. So I like this move for both teams. The Padres, listen, the Padres are they're kind of
good.
They're kind of good, but they're also sneaky make moves. Like Preller makes moves, a lot. Right? Mm-hmm. He's not afraid to go for it. And he's making a move to get him into the postseason, like you said, and then see what happens.
Jason Adam is really good. He's been one of the better, whatever you want to call him, high leverage arms for the past several years. Got great K percentage. Not super expensive, right? He's like a few $1,000,000 a season. Generally lost his ARB case, so he's making 2.7. Kratz, don't worry, not the 3.25. But he's great. He's one of the best relievers in the sport. And now the Padres' high leverage arms are getting really, really crazy. I would say, what is there, 3 or 4 guys that you're like, damn, in a playoff series, you get 5, and then you go to Estrada, Adam, Suarez. It's getting pretty attractive back in the Padres bullpen at the end.
They might limp into the playoffs because they need some of their starting rotation. I know Cease just threw the no-hitter. Waldron's stepping up, but if they can get whatever used, on the restricted list for, and I'm not sure about Musgrove's status, what's going on with him, but you sit there and you go, this team has just shortened the game by another inning. And anytime you do that, especially in the playoffs, the short series early, I love it. I love this move.
Dylan Lesko was a pretty big deal prospect, but he hasn't been able to find his control since coming back from TJ. But that's a good risk.
They got 3 of their top 12 prospects for a guy that isn't their closer.
Yeah,
that's pretty good haul for the Rays, for a team known for developing and knowing. Like Lesko, the guy who he just hasn't been. He still throws 100. He just can't figure it out. He's a high school kid though. Just a few years ago, he's a high school kid. He's still a top prospect. Can the Rays fix him? Sure. Will they put him in the bullpen and say, all right, just do the best you can for 1 inning? They've been known to do that, right? And then the other 2 guys, they got Homer Bush Jr. and the catcher. I mean, they need a catcher. They kind of had a hole there for a few years. Maybe he's the guy, Homer Bush Jr., if he can figure it out. I mean, this is not a bad trade for the Rays because Jason Adam wasn't going to stick around anyway. So get what you can. They got 3 top 12 prospects.
You know what it tells me? The reliever market is expensive. Fair Territory's out with Ken Rosenthal on podcast form at least, and I listened on my way here. It is expensive. The Phillies will cover that quick and plug the new show. But Carlos Estevez, closer for the Angels, Phillies had 2 high-level prospects with breakout seasons that can be starters, and they both go to the Angels. I mean, hey, who cares? If you're the Phillies, it's a great pickup. This might be the best reliever available because he's been doing the 9th inning and he doesn't have a high walk rate. Like, if you want to compare him to a Tanner Scott, I guess.
Yeah, but this is what Dave Dombrowski does.
Yes.
He goes for it. He's like, prospects? What prospects? We going for it, boys. And I love it. If you're on this team, if you're a Phillies fan, like, you're like, we can get, 5 years from now, we'll worry about the prospects we gave up. But right now you have Harper, Schwarber, Castellanos, Real Muto, Turner, Bohm, all these guys lined up, ready to rock. You get a guy that's proven closer, throw in there with Alvarado, right? Great. Throw in there with Hoffman, right?
Yeah.
Kirkering, right?
This is what they were missing in the playoffs last year.
Exactly. This was the Craig Kimbrell role they had last year, right? Well, now you got a guy that's done it before. This is a great move for them.
And Kratz, they didn't give up any of their 5-star, right? This is the next layer down. They could become that level, but they're still on the younger side. They didn't give up the Painter, the Abel, who else? The Aiden Miller.
Right. None of those 3 guys got touched, and those are the big 3 that they feel like are going to be. Justin Crawford, he's up there. But you sit there and you go, these guys kind of made their names recently. They haven't been, so they've been improving. They haven't been those big names that you just mentioned. So to get rid of them, this is the time. Exactly what AJ said. This is the time to strike. If you miss, you try again next year because this team is going to be around for not just this year, next year too. So I love it. And the Padres system has kind of been decimated. So just because they got rid of 3 of their top 12, it's a good haul, but their system's kind of been decimated by the Dylan Cease trade and everything else that Preller's been doing.
Mm-hmm.
Listen, I mean, after seeing the Adam trade, I feel like the Angels could have got more for Estevez.
Really?
I mean, if you go by the rankings of the prospects they got, I mean, I know they kind of turned a little bit of a corner, but you would have thought that they could have dug in for Estevez is a proven big league closer.
Rental.
Still.
Adam's got years. He's got 2 years left.
Yeah, but
2.5 years.
I still think you could have maybe gotten a top 20 prospect out of the
out of the Phillies?
Yeah.
Well, no, these guys are in their top 20.
Not the one article I just looked at. It was 23 and 28.
Depends where you're going through. Also, here's the biggest problem I'm seeing right now on socials. There are very few publications. The one that we partner with does a midseason update, Baseball America. Most don't. A lot changes in 4 months or whatever.
True.
So if it's an article that's going off some other publications, they might not have updated anything since February. That's way too far back.
And these guys shot up a little bit. Shot up a little bit. I mean, shot up. They didn't go from, 23 to 6. They've had good seasons.
Yes. Anyway, if you want more on that particular trade, we have a new show. It's called The Phillies Show. Ruben Amaro Jr., former GM, obviously breaking this all down. Jim Salisbury, longtime insider in Philadelphia. I like that point from Ruben. And then Todd Zalecki with the team every single day. It's a really good trio. Been listening this weekend. They also broke down that Austin Hayes trade from the weekend. So we have a ton of trades that we'll still get to. Rumors, Ken, Bowden. We got big guests coming up today, but that was an early look at some of the recent activity that's going on. And thanks to MLB 9 Innings for sponsoring this segment. Let's
hold on. Can I say something before we go off?
Yes.
It's real quick.
Go for it.
I am not lying about the White Sox job. So the guy in the chat,
he's
stop it because you're an idiot. Okay. You're an idiot. I'm not lying. Okay. I don't know how else I can say it. What I said is the truth. So stop being in bleep.
This is a troll. The chat is actually very mature, and they have mostly now ignored him. And if you type 20 messages in a row, then you do get put in prison. But Twitter prison or YouTube prison, not real. Anyway, that's a look at some trades. We'll get to a lot more later. MLB 9 Innings, run it.
Wow, not bad for only one MVP. Here's how a 3-time winner does it.
That's cute. Call me when you get to 6:30.
Whatever.
Hey, that's MLB 9 Innings. You can scan the QR code and download it for free wherever you get your apps. Get the best baseball game in the palm of your hands. All the latest from the 2024 season right there. You're looking at it. There's the QR code for you. And we'll be right back on FT. We are going to break down the Jazz Chisholm trade because the latest development is that Gleyber Torres is not too hot on third base. Well, it's a big day for us today. FT fam, you're watching right now in the YouTube chat. Subscribe, please, and like this video. But we are still live. We're going to go over, just like you would at an award show, what you're wearing. AJ, what are you wearing today?
Wow, I actually get to talk in a sponsorship. That's amazing. I'm wearing Viore. I've had Viore for years, and I love Viore. And you can see the sign right here that says Viore. It is great stuff, soft. My son loves it. He wears it all the time. It is soft. It is great. It washes well. It keeps shape. And I've known about it for a few years, and I've enjoyed it.
You can work out in it.
You can work out in it. You can wear it to a nice dinner.
Yep.
You can. It looks good. You know, it's good stuff. It's high-quality stuff.
It's very versatile. Kratz, what are you wearing?
I'm wearing a 2024 Viore shirt. While I'm not as classic with the Viore as AJ is, I'm hooked. Like, if you haven't gotten it, like, it is the best shirt that I own. Like, these shirts are unbelievable. I need to get on the site and get some pants and get some shorts too.
It's versatile, it's comfortable, it's designed to look great in everyday life, at the gym, or when you're hosting FT. It's an investment in your happiness. So for the FT fam, 20% off your first purchase. Get yourself some of the most comfortable and versatile clothing on the planet at viore.com/foul, Foul. And you also get free shipping on any U.S. orders over $75 plus free returns. But again, 20% off your first purchase. Got to go to this particular website, viore.com, VUORI.com/FOUL. We'll swing right back and go over that Jazz Chisholm trade with the Yanks. What else is going on with the Marlins? And what other shopping do the Yankees still have to do besides getting some Viore?
Yeah, that's what he said.
That's what he said.
That's what he said.
That's what he said. Okay, so we broke in on Saturday to do a special show on Jazz Chisholm. Thanks for the team behind the scenes and everyone that joined us live as well, including our guy Derek at NYY Recaps. Check out his channel as well on YouTube. But I want to, A, get AJ's take, because Kratz and I were on the show, and B, mix in the Gleyber Torres comments. Would you like me to set the stage with those first, or do you want to just break down the trade? Because I feel like the Gleyber part actually now plays into it, since the Yankees felt like they'd be able to just do whatever they want, mix and match, put Gleyber at third if it worked out.
Use the Gleyber because they're important in this context.
Okay, so let's bring up the quotes here from Brian Hoke last night. He said, Gleyber Torres is not thrilled by the idea of seeing time at third base. The quote is, I'm a second baseman. I play second. Gleyber said he had a conversation with Aaron Boone about third base and, quote, everything is on the table. Asked how he felt about playing third base in the minors. He said, quote, I don't like it. And lastly, Gleyber said he had a combo with Boone about third base. Oh, same thing there. And that I think on the Aaron Boone side, here it is. He's a little reluctant to try Gleyber at third. Torres prefers to remain at second. Jazz may be their everyday third baseman, though Boone said he sees DJ LeMahieu remaining in the mix at all the infield spots. I love this drama, AJ, because they have two players that are getting paid well and have been big parts of the team in the past that are severely underperforming. And now they have to mix that with competing and getting new talent in there, you know?
First of all, this is what happens in markets like New York.
Mm-hmm.
You don't perform, they find someone else. Okay? It's the nature of the beast, okay? It sucks for Gleyber, it sucks for DJ, it sucks for whoever's been in this situation, okay? Now, the player they got in Jazz Chisholm, to me, is an average player, okay? His OPS plus, his career is 102. Now, everyone on Twitter and everything's going, oh, yours wasn't that high. I get it, okay? But you take away 2022 for him, where he only played in 60 games. That was the year he had an OPS plus of 138. He's an average player. He's 100, 100, 101, 95, and then 20, you know. So it's like, all right, they're doing all this stuff. He strikes out a ton for a guy that's supposed to be a speed guy. He doesn't steal a ton of bases. Yeah, he'll hit you some home runs. Yeah, cool. Good for the Yankees. They're trying to change scenery. You know, obviously Yankee Stadium's a better place to hit than Marlins Park. But I don't know. I mean, they were doing okay. I know DJ, and I know what Brian Cash was trying to do, and he's trying to get younger, and he's trying to get more athletic. But to me, this is not an indictment on Jazz Chisholm. But now with Gleyber coming out and saying what he's saying, this has caused more drama, I think, than people expected. And it's going to be fascinating to watch how Aaron Boone handles Chisholm, DJ, Gleyber. Because let's not forget, Gleyber's a free agent. So Gleyber wants to play every day. Now DJ is kind of at the end, so he gets it a little bit more. But Gleyber Torres is a free agent. He hasn't performed well, but he wants to play.
Play what?
Play second.
Base,
That's where he's going to have his most value.
Yeah.
And now they're saying, hey, we're going to move you?
It's not their problem. He's a free agent.
I understand that. But this is just, it's going to be fascinating.
I heard it say when you're a manager, and this is so that AJ knows what it's like to become a manager, you put deposits. Every time you're hanging out with a player, anytime you're talking to a player, you put deposits in the bank. And so when you need to come to him and say, hey, you know what? How do you feel about playing third? This is what we feel is best for the team. I'm not saying that's what Boone said. I'm saying that if he needs Gleyber to play third base, that's when you take the withdrawal from all those deposits, all those times that you talked to him in the last 6 years that Gleyber has played under Aaron Boone. And you're taking that and you're saying, okay, I have built up enough cachet with you and our relationship that I can ask you to play third. With that, Gleyber is a free agent. Gleyber, if he goes into the market with a down year that he's had, he was hoping he would have another career year that he hasn't had since, I know he had an 800 OPS, I think, last year, but before that, it's been, his first 2 seasons. He wants to go in as a second baseman. He wants to play second. So when you communicate with a player, you have to be willing to hear the honesty. And not everybody just needs to, get in line. To me, I think the team is better with Gleyber at second base, and Jazz picked up to be a integral piece of being versatile. He might be their second baseman next year, but I don't think they're better with him at second right now.
There you go. It's not a bad thought.
No, listen, and this is nothing against Jazz Chisholm at all.
Nope. Mean, but their numbers are pretty close this year. If you're going off the number you're talking about, OPS plus. Now DJ's in another world, although obviously he hasn't played a ton yet.
But what
he's had no pop.
This is not a knock on Jazz Chisholm at all. It's just more interesting to see. I'm just looking at the numbers.
Yeah.
Right. The numbers are the numbers, and that you can't hide behind the numbers. The numbers tell you the story. But what's more fascinating is now what Aaron Boone has to do, and what the Yankee media and everyone. The Yankee fans are all like, "Oh, he had a great game last night." It was one game. I mean, I'm sure Gleyber Torres had some good games for you too. I remember when you made the trade for Gleyber Torres, and he first came up, you guys were talking about him being in Monument Park. Now Yankee fans are like, we can't wait to get rid of this guy. Right? So it's what have you done for me lately? And it's going to be an interesting last couple months for Aaron Boone and how he handles these guys.
Yeah, it's a good call.
I think he'll do great. I think this is what Aaron Boone does and why he's in the position that he's in. Anybody can slot Aaron Judge 2 or 3 in the lineup with Juan Soto. Anybody can do that. It's these situations. This is why I think Aaron Boone is a really good manager.
And what's next? Is this team good enough to win a World Series title now?
Does Jazz Chisholm move the needle for you?
It definitely helps.
Okay. But what happens if Gleyber Torres gets hot at second base and DJ gets back to healthy?
Great. That's a good problem. I would say the chances of both of those things happening are low.
But does Jazz Chisholm move the needle?
He can play outfield. Verdugo's not hitting either.
Okay.
I mean, that's the problem.
So he goes to left field, then you have Verdugo complaining.
Oh, well.
No, but you see what I'm saying?
Yeah, you're going to have
like there was no
complaints.
position other than maybe a starting pitcher that the Yankees could have, in a reliever. You can always add relievers.
But their offense has been dirt besides two players.
I understand that. That's the key. But you're still going to have guys complain.
Yes.
Because they're veteran guys. Now, Verdugo's only been there this year, but he's always played his whole career, right? Played. So they're like, hey, Jazz, by the way, you're going to left. Verdugo, because they're both left-handed. Hey, Verdugo, you're going to kick rocks here at the end of the bench. Think he's going to be happy?
No.
You think Gleyber Torres already said it?
I know, but there's two Anthony Volpe's not having a good year either at the plate.
They're not putting Jazz at short.
I understand that. I'm just saying they needed to do something.
I agree.
And I could make the case that even another bat could still be in play for them. And yes, definitely a high leverage arm. I know they're hot after Tanner Scott, but get in line.
I mean, Chisholm brings speed, and he's going to bring some energy.
Yeah. And you don't think there's anything untapped there because he was part of a very complacent team. He was kind of the star or one of the bigger names on a team with, and now he joins a ball club where they're like, dude, let me show you how this is done.
Is Judge going to grab him and be like, hey, bro, we don't do that here? Like,
no doubt.
I mean, he's going to have to,
yes.
right?
I don't even know if he'll have to. I think it's going
just
to be that.
built in when you go to the Yankees that you just fall in line.
For someone like him, yeah. This
Good. I hope it
this isn't a bad.
out.
This is not a bad kid. I think he got kind of a bad rep, especially lately, where it's like, oh, I don't know if he can fit in the clubhouse. It's like he was in Miami. So anyway, we'll ask Jim Bowden about this. We'll get to many more trades. We'll step aside for a moment. We're going to talk to Sahadev Sharma coming up next, who hosts the Northside Territory Pod and who writes for The Athletic. We'll get more on what the heck the Cubs are doing. All right, we're staying here, FT fam. I haven't gotten to many of the questions yet. I'll try to do my best in this little 2-minute stretch. Mike said, just like Dan O'Dowd said last week, Jazz gets to focus less on his brand now and more on actually winning. I can see that. Who is he looking up to in Miami right now?
Obviously not Mickey Rojas.
No, and he's been gone for years. I mean, there's not many dudes down there to set the tone for him. You know
I mean, Skip and John Jay and the coaching staff.
Right, but no players where you're like, hey, this is how it's done, right? And this is when we show up. This is how we watch video. I think there are some things that he probably hasn't even picked up on in the game yet that he can learn from Soto and Judge. No?
True, but I hope this trade works out. I do.
Yeah.
For the Yankees, for Jazz, for everybody. There's definitely going to be a learning curve, though. When you go to New York, everybody kind of has a little bit of a learning curve. And, you see some of the best players in the world that just wilt there. And I hope Jazz has enough energy, and I think he has enough self-confidence where he's not going to do it. But, we'll see how it goes. It's a risk. This isn't a slam dunk where, like, with some players, you're like, oh, this guy's going there. It's going to be great. You just never know.
No. Because besides 1 year, right, and for a very short period of time, this has not been a star player yet. Getting questions like Jacob Braves going to do anything? Yes. The Braves are definitely going to do something. I don't know if I'm believing the rumor about Garrett Crochet for them because I don't think they have the prospects to acquire him, but they're going to get a bat or two for sure. They'll get an outfield type.
Well, the bigger question is, what are the White Sox going to do?
Well, they should be trading a lot
you got about
players.
24 hours.
They will. Like, Fetty's definitely gone.
Fetty's going to go to the Brewers. From what I heard, Brewers or Cardinals.
Yep.
What do they do with Crochet? Now, Crochet...
That's the wild card, which
Crochet
we're going to
with
get
his
to.
comments, too, or his agent's comments to me. Again, we don't know how much of this is true or not, but you're not going to... Imagine him getting traded to the Dodgers. They don't extend him. They get to the postseason, and Garrett Crochet goes to Freddie Freeman, Shohei, Mookie Betts, Will Smith, and goes, yeah, guys, I'm not pitching.
Steven Strasburg did it. Remember?
That wasn't his decision.
I understand, but
The
save
team
that.
shut him down. He made the decision, or his agent made the decision to say, "Hey guys, unless I get an extension, I'm not going to pitch in the playoffs." Like, you're on a team that's going to lose 120 games, bro. You get a chance to pitch. You pitch. I mean, again, and now I see it from the other side on his side, and Kratz probably agrees with me. Like, what happens if he gets hurt and he doesn't have that extension? But what happens if he stays on the White Sox and gets hurt?
To be continued. We're going to get to that. All right, let's do this. Sahadev Sharma from The Athletic joining us right now. He had a fun weekend, and you can listen to him and Patrick Mooney run the Best Cubs show. Northside Territory, get it wherever you get your podcasts. You can subscribe to their YouTube channel as well. Sahadev, great to see you. So scale of 1 to 10, how shocked were you to see Isaac Paredes landing with the Chicago Cubs? And why is this a great deal for the Cubbies?
Yeah, if Craig Counsell being hired was a 10, this is up there. This is an 8 or a 9. I was not expecting this, but it just goes to show we need to listen to when Craig Counsell and Jed Hoyer and Carter Hawkins talk, because they all said, like, don't just assume selling is the only route. They just because Jed Hoyer said they're not going to make moves to help only in 2024 doesn't mean they can't make moves to help the team in 2025 and beyond. And that's what Isaac Paredes does. I mean, this answers a big question at third base. They tried Christopher Morel there. It was getting better, sure, from the first month of the season, but I don't think anybody was gung-ho about him being the third baseman going forward. And the fact that his offense just never really, delivered what the expected stats said they should in the first couple months, I think that was a big issue. This is a big move, and it makes a ton of sense for them because now you just checked something off the wish list for the offseason. You saved yourself a lot of work in the winter. I've been kind of clamoring for them to make an aggressive move, kind of use some of the prospect depth that they have. I didn't expect it to be right now just because prices are so high at the deadline. But they found a deal that they liked. They found a partner that they liked, and it made sense. I think the big thing is he's cost controlled. If they want to move him around the infield, they can. But he's right now their third baseman, and now they can kind of figure things out. And if come wintertime, if Tom Ricketts allows, they'll be spending aggressively and looking to fill different holes.
So if a team that just picked up a cost-effective player is going to spend aggressively, does that mean Taillon's last start will or will not happen?
So my understanding is he's still scheduled to start, right? He's still starting tonight. Does that mean he's off the market? I mean, I just said how aggressive teams are, right? So I think if it's a move where they feel like they're getting better for 2025, they will have to consider it. And I think the Cubs have been listening on everyone for that very reason. They're not going to be shy about, talking about anyone. It's about the return. This front office is all about value. Have a conversation with Carter Hawkins, and you'll hear that a lot. That they'll consider anything. I personally think it'd be a mistake to move Jameson Taillon if the goal is to win in 2025. If Brent Brown and Jordan Wicks were healthy and pitching brilliantly, it'd be a different conversation. But they're both hurt when they were healthy. I mean, we didn't get enough of Wicks, so we don't know. When Brown was healthy, he was very good. He looked great as a starter. I don't know if that's his future. I don't know if he's a starter or a reliever, but he looked good in short bursts this year as a starter. I just don't think with so little certainty regarding your starting pitchers as far as the depth, they have nice depth, but I don't know if you can call it certainty with the depth. So it's a risk. And starting pitching, a guy like Taillon, a guy that's a leader in the clubhouse, a guy that will put in the work to fix whatever's wrong whenever it goes wrong. He was off at the beginning of last season. He admitted it. He talked about it openly, and he put in the work to get better. And go look at what he's done for the last year plus. He's been a very good starting pitcher. Is he a dominant ace? No, he's probably not that, but he's a reliable starter that probably pitches in the playoffs for a playoff team, right? So those guys are hard to come by, and I think he's, $17, $18 million a year. on the open market, that's not what a guy that produces like him goes for. Like, the guys make a lot more than that on the open market. He likes being in Chicago. He loves Tommy Hotovy. I think it would take a lot to get rid of him. It would have to be a really good deal. But, you see what some of these pitchers are going for. I could understand it. I just think it's a big risk when the stated goal is winning next year and beyond.
Okay, then who is Bellinger on the block? I know he's hurt, but would he be someone they would move? I mean, because you're talking about 25 and beyond, right? So 24 is a wash. Like, you've pretty much given up on 24. Okay, well then who else could they possibly move from this team? I mean, Bellinger, maybe? I don't know. They got to find a catcher at some point, right?
Right.
They've got to find power. I mean, I guess Paredes addresses that a little bit. But there's, would Ian Happ waive a no-trade clause? Probably not. What about a Nico Horner? Could he possibly, because if they're not going to win this year, you start looking at some of these guys, they're almost aging themselves out in today's game.
Yeah, then that's a fair point. I don't think the players obviously haven't given up on 24, right? And I think there's something to be said for having a respectable season in 24 and keeping a baseline which encourages the ownership to spend. You don't want to have a 70-win team, and then you're going to the ownership and saying we're going to spend big this year, and ownership says for what, to get to 78 wins. So you have to be careful not to get too bad. But with the NL being so mediocre, everyone's still in it. I'm not saying the Cubs are contenders right now, and I think in the long run it's going to end up being that they fall short. But they could certainly go on a run. We've seen teams do that. But yes, the focus is 25 for the most part. So who could be moved other than Taillon? Yes, I think Bellinger did listen. He may be activated today. It sounds like every day has been progress with him. He's not far off. They've been saying this road trip. There's 3 more games left on this road trip. So I think there's a chance he's activated in the next couple of days. But does that give them enough time to trade him? I don't know. Nico Horner is certainly a name I've heard be thrown around. I don't think they're giving him away, though. So like that, they'd have to, again, be bowled over. I think the names you look at are in the bullpen. It's Hector Neris. It's Drew Smiley. Even Julian Merriweather, who just returned. And I think the big prize would be Mark Leiter Jr. You're going to look at that 4 whatever ERA and think it's not been a great season. He's been pretty damn good. Like his numbers, his ERA doesn't show how good he's been. He's striking out guys like crazy. He gives up a ton of ground balls and weak contact. The bad stretch that he had was all other relievers giving up his inherited runners, and then just like ground balls finding holes. He had one bad outing where he walked a few guys, and then that it turned out to be where he got hurt. But since he's come back, I don't think he's given up a hit. Maybe he gave up a hit in his last outing, but he's not given up very much. He's really shut down the opponents. He hasn't walked anyone. He looks pretty dominant right now. Talking to scouts around the league, they agree. Like, this is a high leverage arm that is, if Jason Adam gets the return that he did, there's no reason Mark Leiter Jr. shouldn't. Now, he's under control for 2 more years, so he could help the Cubs beyond this season. He's also a 33-year-old reliever. And front offices like Jed Hoyer's don't always say like they're not like desperate to keep relievers. They believe they can develop guys and turn guys into, a guy like Julian Merriweather. They picked him up off, I think it was a DFA, and they picked him up and turned him into a high leverage arm last year. They just traded for Nate Pearson. I'm sure they believe they can turn him into a high leverage arm. So that's how a lot of front offices work now. They think they can take relievers that have talent that may not be getting results and turn them into high leverage relievers. I think that's easier said than done, and it's really hard to be consistent with it. But that's just the belief among many front offices. But I think that's where you look. Most likely, I think they are going to make more moves that look more like selling moves, and it's going to come from the bullpen. But I would not rule out other moves. Like you mentioned, Nico Horner, Cody Bellinger kind of doesn't have a perfect spot on this roster anymore when they're giving Pete Crow Armstrong runway, and Michael Busch has kind of established himself as the everyday first baseman.
Okay, last one real quick. Is Craig Counsell, how involved is Craig Counsell? Is this now going to be Craig Counsell's type of team? What kind of say does he have in the trades? And is the first year of the Craig Counsell $8 million a year experiment a failure? Because they brought him in to win now, and now they're having to make moves, and they're already talking about 25 and 26 and 27. So has this been a failure the first year, and what kind of say does he have in these?
Yeah, you can't say it's been a resounding success, right? They paid him. They fell a game short of the playoffs. The big move they made was adding him. To say it's a failure, I think would be a little bit going a little too strong. But you can't say it's a success. It had to be a better season for it to be a success. I'm willing to say that I think he has great ideas. I think he's a good manager. I think he's a good communicator with the players. I know a lot of them respect him highly and believe he's all about winning. So they like him and they think he's a special manager. It's going to take long. It's obviously got to be better than this year going forward. Otherwise, then we're going to have real conversations about his impact. He does have a say in things, and I think Jed Hoyer really does respect his and value his opinion. And if there's one thing about Craig Counsell, he's not afraid to give you his opinion. He wants you to disagree with him because he wants to hear other points of view, but he will disagree with you. He will tell you straight up, like, I disagree with that. And he'll say that to Jed Hoyer. He'll say that to anyone. He's not afraid to give his opinion. I think he wants to. I think there are some things that he's probably observed this season that he will change, whether it's training staff, coaching staff, player development, whatever it is. I think he's going to give his opinions and say, I think this may work better. This is how we did it in Milwaukee, or these are some things I observed in Milwaukee that were really effective that I think can be implemented here. Right. I mean, go look at what Milwaukee does, winning year after year on a shoestring budget. I think you have to respect what they're doing. They're one of the, better organizations when it comes to small budget organizations. It's them, Cleveland, and Tampa that deserve a ton of respect for what they do. So if you can get ideas from that organization, why not implement them if you believe it's going to make your organization better?
Sahadev, we appreciate the time. This was great. And obviously, I'll give a nice plug to the Northside Territory promo once we say goodbye. But we'll chat with you soon, and we'll listen to you on Northside, okay?
Thanks so much for having me, guys. Take care.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Really good insight and a lot more from Sahadev, plus Patrick Mooney. Multiple episodes every week. It is Northside Territory. You can subscribe on YouTube, and you can get the podcast wherever you find your podcasts and listen to them. Jim Bowden, the great, from The Athletic, CBS Sports, and many more spots, joining us next.
I want to talk a little bit about a different circumstance about Garrett Crochet. I find it very unique. I find it compelling. I find it pretty cool, if you want the truth, as coming from a player saying, listen, you're going to have to pay me if you want to trade for me, and I'll pitch from whatever. What happens if he does get hurt? The guy hasn't pitched over 50 innings. What's it like to accomplish a trade like that? Are you a guy that would be like, oh, man, I'm staying away from that? Can you see more players doing this down the road?
Well, let's just talk in generalities here, right? Okay, so it's a player like him that maybe hasn't had quite the workload. If you're acquiring a player that's got lower service time and has a number of years before free agency, you want to think about this as like a marriage. This wants to be a relationship, and you want everybody to feel good in the process. And so, one of the things that you would want to do, or at least I would want to do, is communicate with the player, maybe even before making the transaction, if that team would allow that. But otherwise, more just being there for the player when you make the acquisition and laying out a plan and saying, this is how we're going to monitor this, and this is what we're going to do in between starts. I will say that the use of innings and pitch counts, is a helpful proxy, and it gets you some of the way there. But there's so many more evidence-based tools that we have at our disposal, or the training rooms have at their disposal nowadays, that really give a better view into the actual workload of a player. So I sometimes tend to think of like the inning limits and the pitch counts as kind of like speed limits, right? Some people can drive a little bit north of 65, right, Erik Kratz? And then some people can drive, can't even handle 65 miles an hour. And so everybody's a little different. And so when you have these more evidence-based tools, I think they'll guide you a little bit more.
We're back on FT, and so is the great Jim Bowden, longtime general manager, 16 years running the Reds and the Nationals, executive of the year in '99, and now he's everywhere. He's, first off, my good friend, but also MLB senior writer for The Athletic, just put out a trade primer, check that out. Host of SiriusXM, MLB Network's award-winning front office show and many other shows on there I listed yesterday, and then lead MLB analyst and insider for CBS Sports HQ. He's on all week breaking down trades. Jim, how you doing? And I know this is maybe your favorite time of year. As we were setting you up in the green room to get ready for the interview, it looks like there's a 3-team trade that's going down right now with the Dodgers and the Cardinals and the White Sox. What's up, man?
Hey, not too much, man. Great to be back with you and AJ and Eric. Love your show. You guys do such a great job. And congrats on Bally Sports. That's huge news.
Thank you. Appreciate that, Bowden. And I know we got a lot to do, so let's get right to it. We're seeing that the deal is done, right, with the Cardinals and the White Sox and the Dodgers. You're getting the reports. Okay. So your thoughts, I know we don't know the prospect return yet, but your thoughts on the Dodgers trading for a player that hasn't played yet this season. Tommy Pham's gone. He had the wrist surgery in the offseason. Then he had a setback with another issue, which I'll tell you in just a sec. I forgot which part of the body it was, but hasn't played a game yet. Obviously, Eric Fetty was one of the more coveted arms, and he's going to land with the St. Louis Cardinals. But he had the ankle injury also for Edman. He's rehabbing right now and looks like he's going to be back soon. But your thoughts on this one, aside from what the prospect stash is going to look like for the White Sox?
Yeah, I mean, look, I don't think there's any question that Eric Fetty was going to get traded. He was a great sign by the Chicago White Sox. Absolutely give a lot of credit to Chris Getz, who went out there, got him on an affordable rate. Great job of them scouting them for sure. And look, I don't think there's any doubt that, Eric Fetty is definitely going to sit there and help that rotation. They were looking for a veteran starter. That was one of the goals that they had. And one thing that about John Mozeliak is he's a targeted president and GM. He always looks for that one thing that he wants. He doesn't make a lot of moves, but he always fills that one need that he thinks the team had. So this deal really not a big surprise to me.
All right, but is Fetty a guy that can help the Cardinals? I mean, I know he's under a 2-year deal and they signed all those guys to the 1-year deal, but he's not a heavy strikeout guy. He's a heavy contact guy, right? He kind of pitches edges, cutters, curveballs, changeups, kind of mixes it up. He's not going to go out there and punch out 12 in 6 innings for sure. So is this a move that can impact the Cardinals? Obviously, not only this year, but next year?
I mean, I don't like the word impact, right? But I think anytime you get a guy that can give you solid innings as a third or fourth starter, which is really how I look at it. Maybe Sonny Gray's a 2, but the rest of their rotation are really 3, 4s, and 5s. And this adds to that. I mean, the one thing you get with Fetty is you get a guy that can keep you in games for 5 or 6 innings and then try to outscore them and try to out-bullpen them. Look, this isn't getting Skubal or Crochet or a top of the rotation kind of difference maker. It's not impactful, but you need guys to give you 5 or 6 innings. You need to be able to keep that bullpen fresh and strong, as AJ. So yeah, I like the deal. I think this is expected. I think I wrote in May that Fetty was one of the guys that they were going to be targeting. So not a surprise. This is who they landed.
And apparently I said Pham at least at one point, so I'll correct myself. It's Tommy Edman, who hasn't played yet this year for St. Louis and now is going to end up with the Dodgers. So your take on this being a good fit for LA? I know they're looking for versatility. This guy's as versatile as anyone in the game right now. But JB, did you do this often when you were GMing? Like a player that you haven't seen one lick this season? Like I know, remember Bader was traded when he was on the aisle a couple of years ago, but he had played like 70-something games. I'm just always curious. You never know how a guy's going to look when he hasn't played the entire season.
No, there's no doubt about that. And look, the Dodgers would have done their homework on medicals. The Dodgers medical staff is amazing. I think they're as good as there is in the business. So they're following it. And this is a player, for them isn't just for this year, but, they've got a lot of concerns because they're not sure when Max Muncy's going to be back. He's not getting better as quickly as they thought that he would. You've got Betts coming back, but, Edman's positional flexibility is something that the Dodgers really like, right? They like guys that can play multi-positions. And so Tommy, you can put him at second, you can put him in center, you can put him in left. He's a winning player. He's the kind of guy that Andrew Friedman likes having on the bench. I mean, he's always done a very good job on the bench, getting guys like Kike Hernandez. So I look at Edman as more of a, 10th player. For me, not necessarily a regular player, but a guy that can play every day. Chris Taylor looks like he's done for me. And and looks like Tommy Edman is kind of a Chris Taylor kind of player, play multiple positions. In terms of how much he'll be able to produce this year down the stretch, I don't think he's a difference maker.
All right. I'm sure you heard Crochet's comments just, I guess it was Friday, about needing an extension. It's not hard for you to put on your GM hat. I'm sure you have them stashed behind you and all your goodies back there. What do you do with that? If you wanted him, are you now out? Are you like, if you're the guy, you're the team that needs it, like, hey, we're just going to go for it and see what happens? How do you handle that?
Well, it depends what team I'm running, right? Like if I'm running the Washington Nationals, I'm in. If I can make a prospect trade with Chicago and get Crochet for the long term, I'll take him and not pitch him. That's fine with me because I'm building for the future. Now, if I'm a contending team that wants to win right now, that's tough for me to take unless I'm willing to, pay the price that it's going to take to give them a 4 or 5 year deal that's going to be, well over $100 million. Now, if I'm willing to do that, I might consider it. Now, for me, most teams are going to pass, right? Because if you're trying to trade for that starter, I want someone that's healthy that can pitch. I'll just go get Jack Flaherty or I'll shoot for someone else. But, there's 2 teams that I can see that would take him anyway, right? And that's the Dodgers and the Braves. If the White Sox like the young starters that Atlanta has to offer, then, I could see Alex Anthopoulos doing it, trading for him and then trying to just have conversations with him, get him over and say, okay, if you don't want to pitch, that's fine. What do you want to do? How can we help you? And then, if he wants to pitch out of the bullpen for 2 months, fine. And then on September 15th, if he wants to change his mind and decide he wants to pitch in the playoffs, then okay. I think if you're the Dodgers and Andrew Friedman, you can afford to take the gamble. You can afford to make the trade and sign him. Or, you can, like you did with Edman, you don't care. Okay, you come over here and we'll all work it out and we'll all talk. We're the Dodgers. And, we'll try to sell him in Los Angeles. When and if you ever get the free agency, how does it work for you, Garrett? Because, you've got Ohtani here and Betts here and Freeman here and Kershaw here. And, we're not going anywhere. We're always going to be a World Series contender. How would you like to spend your career with us? It's a pretty easy sell to Crochet for me. And I know what he has said. Remember, CAA is right down the road from Dodger Stadium, right? It's 20 minutes away where the agents are. And for Crochet, if you can find a way for CAA to limit the market for the White Sox to trade him and then try to guide them to Dodger Stadium where you like to have all your best clients, right? It works better when your clients are at Dodger Stadium. Maybe the agents can find a way to get him to become a Dodger. And then when the Dodgers get him, you say, hey, Garrett, how about this idea? We'll throw you 1 inning at a time every 4 days for August and the first 10 days of September. And then let's try to stretch you out a little bit and pitch you in the playoffs. What do you think about that? And see what Garrett says. And maybe in the meantime, sign him to a long-term contract that makes him comfortable to do that.
Jim, do you think that he kind of I don't want to say lessened his value. I mean, I know you kind of talked about it a little bit, but if you're Chris Getz, right, are you a little bit angry about this? Now, I get it from the player side because if I'm Crochet, he's like, all right, if I go out, I've never pitched as much, I blow out, I might, never get to pitch again, right? But from a GM standpoint, if you're Chris Getz, yes, I know his agency's trying to get him to a good spot and limit his trade value and all that, but if you're Chris Getz, aren't you a little bit like, dang, bro, like you could have waited and just not gone public with this? Right? I mean, doesn't it kind of undercut him a little bit in his power of options?
Yeah, completely screwed Chris Getz.
Now,
I felt bad.
Now listen. They could always send him down if he doesn't get traded, and they pick up another year. They could say, "Hey, we're going to limit your innings. We're sending you AAA," and send him down, and they could get another year of control if they're that mad. Now they won't do that, but it is an option. It is a possibility.
Yeah, it was a devastating blow. I mean, and AJ, keep in mind this, right? They have the worst record in baseball, and I'm sure you'll agree, maybe the worst team you and I have ever seen, ever in the big leagues, right? I mean, they're that bad. They've had 2 14-game losing streaks, and if you take them out, they still have the worst team in baseball. Like, what they're doing is embarrassing. And to make matters worse, they're going to get the 10th pick in the first round next year, not the first pick, to rebuild. So Crochet was your one chance right now to trade and get a first-round caliber star player. And the agents and Garrett basically took that from you. So, yeah, it devastating blow for sure for Chicago. And now you have to look at it that if you don't get exactly what you want for him, it's okay to hold on to him. And let's do it again in the offseason. Because in the offseason, you're going to have more non-contenders play. And when people see the price of free agent pitching, some of these teams that aren't playing right now are going to probably play and offer more prospects. So, for the White Sox, you may have to wait. But, yeah, devastating. Because otherwise, everybody was in on Crochet. Everybody. And it would have been a really great opportunity for them to bring down the timeline of when they could win, because he could have brought 4 or 5 legit prospects back to Chicago and really helped that rebuild.
Hey, JB, let's talk star power for a moment. You wrote about Tarik Skubal at one point in The Athletic and how you thought the Tigers maybe should deal them. It doesn't look like they will, and that they'll go the Flaherty route. He actually just got scratched, so that should get done, I'm imagining, at some point today. So let's start starting pitching real quick here. So between those two, and then also Blake Snell's name emerging with the performance that he put together this weekend in the last few starts, what do you see happening, and what should happen if you were running point for, say, the Tigers?
Well, I mean, Flaherty's going to get traded, and I think he's going to end up being the best value starter traded. He's having a legitimate comeback year. He's pitching like he did when he was with the Cardinals in his prime. And I know the Houston Astros and Orioles are trying to reacquire him, but the Astros are in on him as well, and I don't blame them. I think this is going to be a real solid pickup, Scott. I love Flaherty. I think he's great. Now, in terms of Blake Snell, it was interesting how this came about, because it was on Thursday when the Crochet news broke, right? And then at the same time, the asking price for Tarik Skubal was so high that teams started to fade. So Farhan Zaidi sat there and said, well, wait a minute. If they're both off the market, I'm going to jump in here with Blake Snell. Like, after his last 4 starts, I'm going to jump in with him, right? So he jumps into the marketplace, and then the Giants win 4 games in a row. And granted, it was against the Rockies, but still, how do you wake up this morning 3.5 games out and trade Blake Snell? How do you walk down to that Giants clubhouse? It's 3.5 games out. They waited all year to get Robbie Ray off the injured list. They're about to get Alex Cobb off the injured list. And then are you going to really trade Blake Snell? When you're that close, I'm not buying it. So I don't think Snell's going anywhere. I think Flaherty will be the next one after Fetty. And I think Flaherty will be the real prize when it's all said and done.
Love that. All right, let's finish with this, JB, just because we finally got, like, I would say, the more significant last piece of the puzzle. I love when we're chatting for 12 minutes and there's activity like this. So we'll let you jump back to Twitter and to your other shows on CBS and everything else. But lastly, we get the, I would say, final piece of the big league package puzzle, where the Dodgers don't just get Edman, they're getting Michael Kopech as well. And here's a guy that obviously the White Sox have had for quite some time, pretty big arm, goes to LA. Your thoughts on, that piece of the package for a Dodgers team that's thinking about how they can stack up for October?
Yeah, I've always loved Michael Kopech's arm. I don't know why it's never translated and developed, but I know one thing: the pitching room with the Dodgers is special. And when you look at that group right there, and you talk about Kershaw and Ohtani and Glasnow and the pitching coaches there and the research and development group, I love what their potential is to do with Kopech. I can't wait to see what changes they make in his sequencing or in his delivery. But I know one thing: Andrew Friedman and his staff are obsessed with making players the best they can possibly be. So I can't wait to see what Kopech, ends up doing here. But I think it also is a strong signal, since that's the last piece in the deal, that they won't be getting Crochet or Robert, because if they were getting one of those two guys, it probably would have been involved somehow in this deal as well. So that's kind of my quick take on that.
Yeah, excellent point, right? If you're already having that conversation, I know you said on the front office yesterday, the Yankees and Tanner Scott, well, why didn't it already happen then in the deal for Jazz Chisholm, right? Like you could have already put all the pieces together.
I will say this, though. My sources with the Marlins say the Yankees are still in on Tanner Scott, as are the Orioles, Red Sox, and Royals. Those are the 4 teams this hour that are in the lead for him. There's other teams that are playing, but it sounds like it's going to go to one of those 4. And if I had to guess, it would be an American League East team, with the Orioles probably having the best shot. But the Yankees, I'm told, are still in that, for what it's worth.
Okay, I like that. So the bidding war continues then for Tanner Scott. JB, you're the best. Thank you so much for joining us. Enjoy the next 24 hours here, my dude.
Thanks, guys. See ya.
Thank you. That's Jim Bowden at Jim Bowden GM. To follow him on Twitter, check out all his work in The Athletic as well. We'll be right back on FT to break down some of what's been stirring. We're spreading rumors next. James Paxton does get moved. He was designated for assignment by the Dodgers as they have pitchers coming back. Kershaw just came back. He looked okay. We can talk about that at some point.
Mm-hmm.
And Glass now came back from the IL. They're going to get some others. So they didn't have a spot for Paxton. He hasn't been bad. He can be a back end starter. Boston picks him up in a deal. Very young prospect in Moises Bolivar. Thoughts on Boston getting a little bit of starting pitching depth? They need innings, as many teams do, for the rest of the season here.
Yeah, and well, he's familiar with Boston, so
Yeah.
I think you can't go wrong with that. You know, is he going to be the Paxton of old? I don't know. I think he is a good starter. I think, 4 or 5, he's ready to go whenever. I think Boston's trying, which is great. I think they're trying to figure out some ways. What'd they give up? The 12th and 22 prospects, so they weren't giving up any top 10 guys.
Well, that's a Rosarena deal.
Oh, excuse me. I'm thinking about somebody
You're
else.
one step ahead.
Yeah,
of us.
I'm one step ahead.
Kenny Ballgame's going to break that down, but this is just a
I think
17-year-old.
it's a simple pickup. It's a simple pickup. Nothing real big here. We're going to get a lot of trades like this. Just getting some guys in to fill some spots, and hopefully they get lightning in a bottle. That's pretty much it.
Lightning in a bottle. He did start to find some lightning. His last start touched a 97, which he hadn't touched in a long time. Hey, maybe this new pitching philosophy that the Red Sox have adopted this year, he can adopt something like that with a little, a different type of slider, sweeper, curveball mix than he's been using, and they unlock some. But they're going to get innings, which is huge for the Red Sox. Shouldn't be the end of their moves.
Yeah, veteran starting pitcher. Maybe they'll get another. Definitely a reliever. And then they would like some right-handed hitting pop. I don't think they're going to give up a ton to get it, so it's probably more along the lines of a Josh Bell, Mark Canha, somebody like that, right? But we'll see what they do. It seems like Boston is like, we'll do a little bit, but we're not going to go crazy.
Yeah, and I think Noam Paxton, he's come out and said this before, that some days he doesn't know what he's physically going to have or during these starts. So it's flip of a coin. Either you got it or you don't, man. That's it's tough to do.
Trade. Mission complete.
I like that. It's like, for me, pinball status when you really did something good. The Cardinals, Dodgers, and White Sox are doing things. That 3-team trade just keeps expanding. The latest that will add to this puzzle, Tommy Pham is indeed getting traded. So I fumbled my words, but I meant it. Tommy Edman is traded. He's going to be with the Dodgers. Tommy Pham in this trade is going to the St. Louis Cardinals. He's going back to the St. Louis Cardinals. Didn't they not love each other by the end? Didn't they kind of have a little divorce?
I don't know about that, but listen, I played with Tommy in St. Louis. Listen, I mean, they need a right-handed bat, and guess who they got? Tommy Pham. And Tommy would be happy about this. I talked to Tommy this weekend. There was a couple of teams he did not want to go to.
This wasn't on the list?
This was not one of those teams that he mentioned, because he said some teams didn't treat him with respect this offseason. And he wasn't real happy about them. So the Cardinals were not one of those teams. And just proves you can go back home again. And Robert Murray, way to go on the Pham trade.
He can drive. He can drive from Chicago to St. Louis. I mean, free Pham, Phree. I think this is great. They've got their left-handed bats, and this is the spot that I think they thought Jordan Walker was gonna fill in. So now they have the right-handed bat that they can put in the outfield out there. And you know what? When you get fired from a team, traded from a team, whatever it is, you never want to burn bridges. Because once you burn that bridge, it stays burnt. Colby Rasmus never wanted to go back to the Cardinals. Same kind of thing. Guy that came up, the way he was treated by certain people in the organization, never wanted to go back. Didn't need to go back, but Tommy Pham, back to the Cardinals. It's got to be exciting for him. He's in a playoff hunt.
True.
I think it's great. I think it's a nice little burst. Here's the full trade. Eric Fetty and Tommy Pham to the Cardinals. The Dodgers land Tommy Edman and Michael Kopech. And the White Sox are getting Miguel Vargas, who was a pretty big deal prospect a couple years ago. His status has fallen a little bit.
He's been all right, though, for the Dodgers this year.
He's been all right. Yeah. But at one point, he was supposed to be a big deal. I think, expectations have been lowered a little bit. And then there's a number of other prospects on the move for the White Sox. Noah Miller, Gerald Perez, Alexander Albertus. I'm not going to pretend like I can give you a breakdown of all of them, but we do have Hot Sheet with Baseball America.
Noah Miller's 251, 6 homers, 33 RBI, 671 OPS this year. He is 21 years old.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know.
We'll get breakdowns from Baseball America friends.
Listen,
like
I'm
JJ
looking because
Cooper.
as a White Sox fan, I want to know if these guys are any good.
Right.
Is this another trade? Is this another trade where they just get as much as they can instead of one or two like solid pieces? They just try to get as many as they possibly could, kind of like the whole Soroka trade where they got 5 pieces back.
I think so. Gerald Perez, 264, 800 OPS. But, listen, that's in the California League. So, I'm a little bit hesitant because people that have played in the California League know that the ball absolutely flies in that league. So that's a little bit. And then
that's the problem.
Alexander Albertus, also in Rancho Cucamonga, Quakes, 298, 829 OPS with only 3 homers. He's from Aruba. He's only 20 years. He's 19 years old, actually. So that's good. Gerald Perez, 19 years old, playing in these, listen, it's great. It is, Kratz. It's what you said. Let's get some of these young kids, get as many as we can, and see how it plays out. But I think Vargas is the name right now that stands out because people have heard about him. And remember was it last year in spring training? He broke his finger, so he just took the bats and didn't swing, and he still walked.
Yeah. But they were expecting big things from him last year, and it didn't
and they were
work out
counting on
for
him to come up this year and take, last year play a spot, and then Gavin Lux goes down there like, oh, we got Vargas, he'll take a spot, and then boom.
Yeah, you're right. His numbers in the bigs this year have been fine. He hasn't played much. He's at 71 at bats.
Yeah, but he's done okay.
Him and Roberts know each other. This is a Cuban guy. Miguel Vargas is a Cuban guy. I thought he was drafted from here, but it says on his bio he's from Cuba. He's still only 24, about to be 25. So, you have that connection. You help. I guess Moncada's he's done, but you have that Cuban connection that plays.
All right. So what about the big league side of things? The Dodgers get Kopech, high leverage reliever, might play better on a new team with a different pitching development staff and the whole deal, right? Maybe a little bit of a different mix like Jim Bowden just told us. Tommy Edman can play everywhere. Wild card is he hasn't played this year, so.
He's supposed to be close though, right?
Yeah, he's supposed to be close, but sometimes a dude comes back. Man, how many times do you see this? Like, hey, just couldn't get right for the season. Also, forget missing spring training. He hasn't played the entire year. Sometimes a situation like this works out great, and sometimes it's a lost season. So we'll see what happens because they are counting on him to be, a contributor in a number of spots where they've had, a weakness. Also, they're missing a lot of players. Max Muncy is still a little bit stalled in his progression. They're concerned about that. Obviously, Mookie will be back at some point, hopefully soon. There are a number of other players kind of on the mend. So can he kind of hold things over for now when he comes back, which I guess should be pretty soon. Yeah, he's a switch hitter, so that helps the cause. But the Cardinals getting Eric Fetty, I think, is a big deal. That's a guy that they needed for innings. He can pitch a playoff game for them. This was one of the prizes of the trade deadline. He's not expensive either.
No, well, he's got a year of control of 7.5.
They have him for next year. Yeah.
No, this was a deal, and Kyle Glasser just had a great tweet. Only about 1 in 5 prospects traded at the deadline ever go on to consequential major league careers, and that's with significant improvement in recent years. So that goes back to what Kratz said, right? You just get as many guys as you can and hope that one of them turns out to be a great player for you.
Yeah, I hate that though. I hate quantity over quality deals. I'd rather have the one guy that I circled. I just don't think
but teams don't give those up.
Most orgs won't give that up, right? You're calling a Dodger like, oh, I want Dalton rushing, right? Dude has the hit tool. He's a great catcher. And they're like, nah,
no.
Sorry, we'd rather not. There's the tweet from Kyle Glazer. But just Fetty for a moment. Low 3s ERA. Definitely not a pitcher's park. Terrible defense behind him. If you're going by WAR numbers, I think for most of the year, and take it for what it is, but he's been top 3 or 5 on Baseball Reference WAR. He's almost a 5 WAR already. I mean, the strikeout to walk numbers are elite, outstanding. I mean, he came back from overseas and just has become a number 2 this year, something like that. So the Cardinals are right in the thick of the wild card race, and now every 5th day they're gonna have a dude on the mound, another one, right? Like they've had some nice pickups from the offseason in terms of veteran starters, but they needed one more. And this isn't just a back-end guy. This is a guy who could pitch, game 2 for them in the playoffs?
Yeah.
Sonny, then Fetty?
Yeah. Sounds like a Sonny, Fetty.
Yeah.
Lancey.
Could be a nightmare.
Gibby.
I like it a lot.
Well, listen, I like this move for the Cardinals. I like Tommy going back to the Cardinals. The Dodgers get a guy they need that can play a bunch of positions they love, and they get a guy in the back end of their bullpen that throws 100. So, and then the White Sox get prospects. So it's kind of a win-win-win for all 3 teams for what they were looking for. We'll see how it pans out, but it's always nice, to see trades happening, especially on this day.
Yeah, agreed. All right, let's step aside because we're going to talk to Ken Rosenthal about all of this. He was just part of breaking this trade, and a lot more we'll get into with the Fair Territory host, the FT Senior Insider, joining us next on FT. All right, we're back. Eric in the chat said White Sox might have gotten fleeced. I get it, but
now they're saying Noah Miller's not in the trade.
Oh, really?
So I'm so confused now.
All right, we'll figure it out. But anyway, that's the latest. Also, I don't think we're going to have time for this anywhere else. So if you want to throw this in there now, we didn't actually break down the Zach Eflin deal for the Orioles since it happened later on Friday after the show, and then it's been a minute, but I'll go out and say I love that for them. I think he's going to pitch game 3 for them in the playoffs if they don't acquire another high-end starter, right? It's Grayson Rodriguez and obviously Burns to start, and then this is their 3rd best starter, and
he's good.
For next year, he's really good. And the Rays backloaded the contract on purpose. They were never going to have him next year. As long as he was healthy, he was gone, and that's what they did. So mission accomplished on both sides, but the Orioles don't have to give up as much. They don't give up even close to the cream of the crop of their prospects, Kratz, because Zach Eflin costs $18 million next year and the rest of whatever, $11 this year. So it was mostly, I don't want to say all a money deal, but that makes the deal a lot cheaper for them. I heard there were some other teams involved that wanted to have the Rays eat some money, and they were like, no chance.
They're just going to take that money. I'd love to see how this last 2 months go. For that 3rd spot in the rotation is going to be between Eflin and Dean Kramer. I think Dean Kramer probably has a higher upside. Eflin has a little more versatility because what he did in 22 when the Phillies made that great run all the way to World Series and lost, he kind of filled in as a guy coming off the IL. So I'll be interested to see how this goes. It'll be something to watch in Baltimore.
I like it. Ken Rosenthal joining us next. Maybe a question or two for him. We're going to do 10 minutes with Ken on the 3-way trade that we're going over right now with the Cardinals and the White Sox and the Dodgers, but then a lot more out there floating around. And obviously we're going to get a ton of deals still over the next 24 hours, which Ken said again on Fair Territory this morning. He was like, it is going to be nuts for the next 24 hours. So let's get to Ken in 30 seconds on Foul Territory. I think that's good. Inside Scoop time with FT Senior Insider Ken Rosenthal. Ken, let's get right to the most recent development. We've been breaking down the three-way trade with the Dodgers, the White Sox, and the Cardinals. What do you think about it?
Well, it's a very interesting trade, no doubt. And the Dodgers clearly get better with Kopech in the bullpen and Tommy Edman, assuming he's healthy. He is the kind of versatile infield, outfield type that will fit in really well with them. And then from the Cardinals' perspective, not only do they get Eric Fedde, but they also get Tommy Pham back. And losing Tommy Pham, he had a rocky ending there, but it's kind of cool that he's going back there. And Fedde is a controllable starter. He has another year left, and he's pitched well this year. They wanted one more starter. So from their perspective, as I understand it right now, all they're giving up is Edman. There might be more to this deal, not fully confirmed yet, but they do well as well. And then the White Sox, Miguel Vargas is a guy who is going to hit. Everyone agrees with that. Position is somewhat in question. I don't know much about the prospects that they're getting in this deal as well.
What about the Tanner Scott market? How is that developing right now? Because we just had Jim Bowden on, and he talked about the Yankees and Orioles being favorites. What are you hearing?
Oh, I'm not sure who the favorites are right now. I know those teams are in, and I know really every team looking for bullpen help is on Tanner Scott. Now, these things are fluid, and I hate to handicap in any way, but certainly those teams have been mentioned, and I can see him going to any number of places, honestly.
Ken, I don't know how to act serious with you, so I'm trying here. What about Nestor Cortez? He's being rumored to be thrown out there by the Yankees. Is that a possibility of them getting rid of Nestor Cortez?
If they trade Nestor Cortez Jr., it would only be, AJ, I believe, if they acquired another starting pitcher, and they've been trying to do that. So the Yankees are kind of, in my mind right now, the team to watch here because they've got so much going on. Relievers, starters, they're looking for another infielder as well. I don't know what's going to come to fruition for them, but they have a lot in play. And the Dodgers are similar too. Now, they're going to address a couple of needs here in this trade, but there are teams like these two that are looking to do multiple things. The Orioles are another one. They would like another bat as well as another reliever, maybe another starter. So that's why I said on Fair Territory this morning, there is going to be action. And remember, guys, a couple of weeks ago when everybody's saying, oh, it's a seller's market, there's not much that's going to happen. No. Every year it's like this. Every year it's slow and then it erupts. Now, we might not see superstar level players traded, but I believe we're going to see a lot of things happen.
Okay, so I'll ask you about a couple teams that are on the outside looking in, and they've been interesting to break down. The Rangers and the Giants. Let's start with the Giants. Could Blake Snell actually be traded? And what do you think they're going to do? I know it's not a clear buy or sell situation, but to me, it kind of is. If you trade Blake Snell, then you're kind of punting this year, aren't you?
I don't expect them to trade Snell. They're 3.5 out, and if some team gives them some kind of offer that they feel is really good and acceptable, sure, they would do it. I just don't expect it to happen. They will look for another bat, I would believe, and I would expect that they might trade a reliever, one of the Rogers brothers perhaps. They can do some buy-sell type things to improve their roster on the margins. Now, with the Rangers, we saw them trade Lorenzen this morning to the Royals. Now, that is a move that's kind of understandable considering the pitching that they've got coming off the IL. Cody Bradford, eventually Jacob deGrom, as well as Molly from the Twins last year. So they've got a lot coming, and they had room to move a pitcher, but they are also looking to add offense. They are not selling. They are adding, and I don't know to the extent that they will add. Of course, they got the catcher Carson Kelly last night, but one more bat is what they would like to do.
Ken, what are you hearing about Garrett Crochet? And did he kill his trade value with the words that came out of his agent's mouth?
I don't know that he killed it, AJ. He just changed the equation for certain teams. Certain teams, from my understanding, bailed after that all came out. And then there's teams that are still in the mix. Now, the White Sox had been focused on Fedde. So Crochet had been on the back burner. That's what I was told this morning. But now with more than 24 hours to go into the deadline, they can focus on Crochet and teams that might be interested in getting him. The Dodgers and Padres have been in this from the beginning. I don't expect them to go away. And keep in mind, too, that even if you acquire Crochet and you don't give him an extension, he might not be available for the playoffs anyway because of his mounting innings total. So from the White Sox perspective, if you don't get the deal you want now, he'll have just as much value in the offseason because he's going to be available for 2 years at that point. He's available for 2+ now, but if he's not a guy that you can count on for the playoffs, even with an extension, if your team did that, which I don't expect that they would, well, then really the same value applies in November as it would right now, because you'd have him, yes, for the rest of this regular season, but to what extent, no one knows. But the 2 years, the 2 remaining years, that's where the value is with Crochet, if you can't count on him for the playoffs, and I don't know that you can.
What are you hearing from the Blue Jays? Are they willing to make any moves outside of their, they already got rid of Yimi, they already got rid of Danny Jansen, and Kikuchi's another available, because they have some valuable pieces.
Kikuchi's going to go, and there are 10 teams right now, 10 plus, Eric, looking for starting pitching. There are more teams looking than there are pitchers available. So we're going to see some teams get shut out tomorrow, and they're not going to be happy about it. I expect Kikuchi will go, and probably for a pretty good price. Flaherty has been scratched tonight. We know that. They are not in place yet to have a deal, but they're getting there, obviously. And with the Blue Jays, beyond those potential free agents that they've traded and already planned to trade, I don't know that they will do much more. They have said all along they want to compete in 2025, so I don't expect a Vlad Guerrero Jr. trade to come out of nowhere tomorrow. I've been surprised before. I've actually been surprised by the Blue Jays before, but it just seems they're not in that kind of mode.
Ken, you got to work on your Blue Jay sources. What about the Astros and the Guardians? We can't even get a smile out of Ken today. What about the Astros and the Guardians? 2 teams that are in first place.
Get me to hang up real quick.
Hey, that's good.
Oh, that's not allowed,
I like
Ken.
that.
You're under contract.
Astros and who?
Guardians.
Guardians, they are a team that badly needs a starting pitcher. And I don't know if they're going to end up with one or not, but that's the thing that they need to get. There's no question about it. The Astros also looking for a starter, and they traditionally have been aggressive when in position like this. I expect they will come up with something. The Guardians, AJ, are a really interesting team because they are right there. We know that. They're really good, but their rotation is a huge question right now. They really have only a couple of guys they can count on. It's Bybee, it's Lively, Gavin Williams coming on. They're looking for answers, and one of them I would expect would have to be external, and I don't know that they're going to get there. I don't know that they won't.
I know one of the teams that needs starting pitching is my Brewers, so I need a smile brought to my face if AJ can't bring a smile to your face.
Well, they were on Fetty, and it was them and the Cardinals, the way I understood it, so I don't know what this means for them now. They're not a team that traditionally is going to outbid the Yankees for Jack Flaherty at the deadline. That's not what they do. It's not how they operate. So I don't know exactly where they're going to turn, but they, to me, all season have mirrored the Guardians in the way they've surprised all of us and in the way that they have had all of these starting pitching issues surface. And they almost look like the Guardians in the sense that they're teetering. Despite being in first place, they're teetering because of their pitching situation. So in my view, they need to add. But again, once this game of musical chairs stops at 6 p.m. Eastern tomorrow, there are going to be some teams that need starting pitching that are not going to get starting pitching. And who knows who they'll be, but that's the situation that the Brewers and Guardians are in.
I have an idea of one, and I'll bring up the last 2 teams here before you jump. The Atlanta Braves suddenly looking like they might need a starting pitcher depending on what we hear about Reynaldo Lopez. So Braves, and then right after that, if you can finish with the Seattle Mariners, many fans asking if that's it. They want more, especially offensive firepower for this team, which is understandable.
The Braves are waiting to see on Lopez, as you said, Scott, and also Max Fried. The health of those 2 pitchers really depends or hinges on what they might do. So we have to wait and see. Their focus right now is a bat, an offensive player. That's what they've been looking for. That's what they will continue to look for up until the deadline. And if a starting pitching need develops, yes, they will have to go out and look as well. But they're waiting. They're waiting to see. The Mariners, yes, they are looking for one more bat, and they really want to do that. They need to do that. Obviously, Randy Arozarena is a great bat, and he's been on fire since June, but that offense needs additional help, and they're trying to get it.
Ken, you're the best. Thank you very much. Everyone catch Fire Territory, and please hang up on AJ right now. I would love to see it.
Have a good day, AJ.
There's the smile I was looking for.
Here it goes. Boom. And the hang up at the buzzer. Mondays and Thursdays, Fair Territory. So the Fair Territory for this morning, it's great because he does a lot of recapping because things change so much. So it's a good way to actually go over trades that definitely happened versus just flying from report to report. Of course, he mixes some of that in there too, but to actually get the full-on recap from Ken in Fair Territory, it's on YouTube. It's wherever you get your pods. And then Thursday, they will do the full-on trade recap. It'll be Ken and Alana, and they will get to many more of your questions. So if you're in the chat right now, I highly recommend that you're there live 12:30 Eastern time on Thursday as well. We'll break down more trades and rumors, and also we will talk about games, or our baseball games. We'll hit that for a couple minutes too. What's up, FT fam? Also, a reminder to everyone that we are going to be on for a long time tomorrow, but it's a different time. So if you log in at 1 o'clock East Coast time tomorrow and you don't see us live and you're confused, then you're not watching this right now. 3 to 6:30. The trade deadline is 6 p.m. Eastern time tomorrow, Tuesday. So it makes sense for us to bump the time back from 1 to 3 and be on longer. I feel like that's a fair trade. We were working the phones all week, and this is the deal that we made. 3.5 hours instead of 2, 3 to 6:30. And then actually after our show ends at 6:30, we're going to be on with Hot Sheet by Baseball America, because by then you'll know about all the trades and they'll be able to give us the full breakdown on the prospects. So if you're one of those teams that's like, or fans of a team that's like, what did we get back? I don't know who this is. I don't even know how to pronounce his name. We probably don't either, but we can definitely give you a good breakdown of those prospects. And we will be on before that if something huge happens. Like if Crochet gets traded to the Dodgers at 1 p.m., sure, we'll come on. We'll give you a good 10, 15 minutes. We'll get to a writer and get the full breakdown, and then we'll go back and forth. So I think that's the best way to cover the deadline. Agreed? Good?
I'm in.
All right.
I'm in.
Good deal. And yes, we will still be on national television as well, Valley Sports TV, the whole deal, okay, and on their app. So make sure you check all of that out. I do like that you got a smile out of Ken. Ken's biz right now.
Man.
It is like I can picture he's in like a command center and he's.
How many phones?
He only has one.
Really? Is that confirmed?
That I've ever seen. I've only seen Ken on one.
He doesn't have like a bat phone? Like where it's like
I've ever seen him do.
The backup extra that he only has for like the really top sources?
Not that I've ever seen.
Burner phone?
But it could be like the little phone they use in Zoolander for Will Ferrell.
Yeah.
It's Will Ferrell, like the little teeny tiny phone.
Very
Is this
true.
a trade for ants?
Also, props. I have not been in the chat that much today here in YouTube, but I'm seeing everything. I just don't have time to respond. But people were just throwing teams out there. They were like, ask about this team, ask about that team. So I think we got to a good chunk.
We got as many as
I
possible.
only whacked 2 people in the chat today, so we're off to a good start.
Yeah, it is very busy today in the chat, put it that way. All right, so anyway, we're coming back with the full-on show right now. We're going to go over our locks. We'll make it snappy so we can keep getting to trades. We're going to do an injury suck segment, but it's going to be kind of like a trade version of it. Like Mets losing Kodai Senga. Do they try and get a starter now? Braves, etc. We'll be right back. I'm in a massive slump, so I don't even know how much I want to talk about this, but Todd Father just never loses. He went with the Mets, riding the hot hand again, and then they lost the next 2. But they did win on Friday. So anyway, let's move on to tonight's picks. There's your money bags. Everyone's still – all I do is I just make sure I see UP next to all the money, and I'm like, okay, but it's getting a little tighter. So, Kratz, you're on the brink tonight.
Pressure. So I'm going to have to go with the O's in the first game, and I'm going to go with Eflin's first start with the O's. I'm seeing them take them down, and the Royals are going to take down the White Sox, who may not even have 26 guys for the game tonight. Not sure how that's going to work with the shuttle from Charlotte.
At plus,
that's plus 139.
139, nice. AJ?
I also are taking the Royals tonight because they're going to lose 15 in a row for the White Sox tonight.
Woo. 15.
I mean, they already had a 14-game losing streak. This is the second one they've had this year, so why not go for 15? And I'm rooting, honestly, if I'm being a little bit selfish here, I do a White Sox game in like another weekend from now. So like they could be like at the all-time record. Yeah. And that could be the game. I think someone told me where they set the all-time loss record. Now, I'm not saying it's going to happen, but you're saying there's a chance. So I'm taking the Royals tonight. I'm doing a parlay. And then in the other game, Mariners at the Red Sox, I'm taking Nick Pivetta over 6.5 strikeouts because the Mariners strike out more than any team in baseball, and under 8.5 because Pivetta's been pitching well and Logan Gilbert is pitching for the Red Sox. So those three parlayed gets me to plus 308.
Nice. All right, good luck. I'm in minus territory here. Minus 125. Got a little bullpen game action tonight for the Braves with Grant Holmes starting it off. I mean, Brian Snitker right now is like, damn, can I keep a starter on the damn field right now? And also not tax my bullpen because that's going to start to become a problem too. Colin Ray's been sneaky good. Brewers offense hitting much better than the Braves lately, so I'm trying to keep it simple. Minus 125 to win a hundo. Brewers over the Braves tonight. And you can swing for the fences. It's a once a day, free-to-play BetMGM game. You can get the result of your at-bat, like double, triple, homer, single, fly out, the whole deal. And you go to the BetMGM Swing for the Fences game within your account to win a reward if you get a knock, and which is a hit. And that includes odds boost tokens and SGP boost tokens. All rewards expire in 24 hours. Gambling problem or concern, call 1-800-GAMBLER. Or right back to the rumor mill when we swing back on FT. Here we are. We're back again. So we're about to go over Injuries Suck. Any other questions that anyone has right now? I can take a quick peek. And also rumors that have been flying around as well. Kratz, anything stand out to you? Where do you think Flaherty's going?
Man, I don't see how he doesn't go back to the Orioles. I just feel like they're going to make another move for him. I don't know. Even with the Eflin thing, I feel like that's – I don't know. But here's what I say. I think it's going to be a baseball type of trade. For some reason, I feel like the Tigers are going to make some type of – like if it's the Dodgers, somebody that can join the Tigers team this year in the big leagues and be a contributor next year.
Yeah, Braves is a good idea. Padres. See, my problem, I said this earlier with the Braves, is I just think they're going to get outbid on the top guys. Like if Flaherty is the top starter that's available now, you know.
But the Tigers are in a different position. The Tigers want to compete next year. Whether people think they are going to or not, they want to compete. And the Braves, like, do you say no if you say Jack Flaherty to the Braves for Smith Shawver and Bryce Elder, two guys that have been in the big leagues? Two guys, Elder was just an all-star. You know, it's a different look. You're not looking like the White Sox who are like, give me everything you got in the small size. I'm just taking all those and we'll take all that. The Tigers are in a different spot. That's why I feel like it could be a different team. Like a Keston Herstad, like a Heston Kjerstad. I feel like
that's a much better ad for me. I mean, I think Kjerstad has pretty high upside still, and I think he's at least going to be, an average starter in the big leagues. I think that's the floor for him. So yeah, I think that would be a great return if they can pull that off.
That's why I feel like it's going to bring Tigers
back. Deal like that. Okay.
I don't know.
Because you're only getting, it's for a rental. I think they're trying to look at someone like Kjerstad and be like, well, yeah, we would do this for a controllable starter. But yeah, we'll see what happens. Taillon?
That's what I like, but because Burns is gone next year.
Right. So now you've already got 2 good ones, really 3 good ones then for next year. You'd have Eflin, you'd have Tyone, you'd have Grayson, Rodriguez.
Hopefully Kramer and
Kramer
at some point. Beans, maybe. I mean, you never know.
Yeah. It's going to be an uplifting injury suck segment because we're going to also talk about some trades that went down. So we'll start with the Mets because we didn't get to some of their deals. They acquired Jesse Winker. They acquire Ryan Stanek, but also injuries suck because Kodai Senga comes back, looks good. 5 innings, 2 runs, 2 hits, a walk, 9 strikeouts, 72 pitches, hopping off the mound to get out of the way for a pop-up, and suffers a high-grade left calf strain he's done for the rest of the regular season. That sucks. Also, he's fun to watch. That ghost fork was right back to what it looked like last year.
He was dealing.
Yeah.
He was dealing. It was just what they needed. And to see him go down like that, man, that it does. This is when you say injuries suck. Like, there's just too many of these now.
You know.
I feel like, maybe it's because I'm paying attention more, but it seems like, gosh, every day there's 2 or 3 of these guys going down.
And this wasn't the arm, the shoulder, the elbow, whatever. Mm-hmm. This was the calf from a more of a fluke accident here.
Hopefully it lets his arm heal completely. If he had rushed back, obviously it wasn't rushed because it was July till he came back. To me, that ghost fork in Citi Field, I have a crazy theory that I feel like splitters, forkballs, knuckleballs, ever since I watched Dickey in Citi Field and then other places, especially when he got traded to Toronto, I feel like pitches like that move differently in Citi Field, and it showed with an over in the strikeouts for the Senga game.
So what do we think of what the Mets have been up to lately? Remember, they acquired Phil Maton, and I was looking up his numbers lately. Because every time I see him on the mound, it seems like a scoreless inning. Confirmed, it's pretty much been like that in the past few weeks. Now they add Ryan Stanek. He was pretty good with the Mariners. I was listening to Jerry Dipoto talk about it, and they kind of said it was more of a roster crunch. They don't have a lot of players with options, so they can't mix and match. Obviously, Stanek has to be up with the big league club, and he's been great. I mean, he's a high leverage reliever. I mean, he's a high strikeout guy.
Original opener too.
That's right.
With a splitter.
With what? With a splitter.
With a splitter.
Exactly.
That's where I was getting with that. And Nike owes him like $40,000 because he reached his start. He reached his start plateau and like eclipsed it in his Nike contract. So that he changed the game for Nike, but it's not a trade talk. He was my locker mate, and you get bonuses from Nike for every start. And they put it in there, not thinking he'd ever start, and he did. So Nike paid him like AJ Pierzynski cash.
I did not know that.
Good for him.
Good for him. That's awesome.
It was a cool story. Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool story.
And they quickly changed that, I'm sure. What about Jesse Winker too? So they're patching up the bullpen. It's already much better than it was. And then Jesse Winker is added to the mix. Get you left-handed bat who's had a really good year. He's looking like he did from a few years back when he was an all-star. He's been an on-base machine when he's healthy. He apparently had like 8 injuries the last year and change and just couldn't get out of it. And, you know, with the Brewers and the Mariners, now he's been feeling good. He's not a good defender, but it's a guy that's going to get on base 36, 38% of the time.
He went from having a bad year last year to being traded into a pennant race this year. It shows you how quickly things can turn around, right?
Yep.
I mean, people were like, what happened to Jesse Winker last year? Now all of a sudden they're like, man, we got Jesse Winker. Hell yeah. And no, he's not a bad defender, but I once heard him tell a coach one time, he's like, I'm an outfielder. I have one job. Throw it to the cutoff man as soon as possible. And that's great advice for all you outfielders listening. Just get it to the cutoff man as quick as possible.
Amen.
So true. So true. And he's got 14 bags. Don't sleep on that part of it. Like that adds...
And he's got a great personality.
He does. He's a fun guy.
Oh.
But now the outfield for the Mets, I mean, obviously Nimmo's playing every day. You know, Bader's had some injuries, but he's back. He's out there and can pick it. So maybe you can afford a little, you know, less of a defender out there with Winker to counter that. Winker obviously can DH as well. You know, McNeil was out there. Starling Marte, I guess, will eventually come back. He's barely ever on the field these days. But, you know, it gives you a little more of an attractive outfield situation, they were playing Tyrone Taylor quite a bit. DJ Stewart was playing quite a bit and struggling, and he got sent down. So anyway, those are some nice moves for the Metropolitans. To me, it's exactly what I thought they would do. Not name by name, but these kind of mid-level moves that really help at the margins for them.
Crochet would be a nice one, though. He's
Yeah.
there. I mean, he would just be a nice one because he's there for 2 more years. I get it. But there's a guy that can do it. I think it's Stevie Cohen can get this done. And Stearns, he loves playing in those waters too. GM David Stearns does his thing.
The reason I don't think they'll do it is because of how much it will cost in terms of prospects. And they're looking at the offseason going, we've been trying to build up this farm system again the last few years. It has not been great. Now it's pretty damn strong. Do we want to take out 2 or 3 premium names when we could just buy Corbin Burns this offseason?
Well, they're going to have to still buy, but this is 2 years of a controllable player after this.
Yeah, I don't see it just based on how much
That's in their winning window. That's in their winning window. That's why you got prospects, is to be able to buy players like Garrett Crochet.
Okay, so then what about the Braves? Reynaldo Lopez, forearm tightness, leaves on Sunday, a few shutout innings.
Mhm.
That's not good. This is a guy who has been a starter in the past, but then was a reliever for a while, and then all of a sudden you flip back to starter. I'm not saying that's why it caused the injury, but you shouldn't be surprised that a guy is riding high for a while and then there's some concern.
This is the concern with Crochet.
Yeah.
This is exact. I mean, at least Lopez has pitched the last few years. Crochet hasn't pitched really at all, right? So this is where the concern comes in from his side of the camp, saying, like, I want an extension because if something does happen, Lopez, let's hope he's okay because he's been great for the Braves.
Yeah.
Nobody really thought he was going to be a starter except for the Braves. His wife told him to try to be a starter. If you heard the report by Junior, Ken Rosenthal, when we did the Braves-Padres game right before the break, his wife is the one that said, hey, you go try and be a starter. The Braves are the team. You got a nice deal. Boom, makes the all-star team going great. And then all of a sudden, they say it's day-to-day, but anytime you hear forearm tightness, it scares you.
Yeah, it could be a precursor to issues with the UCL, so hopefully he's okay. But otherwise, yeah, the Braves could be hunting for a lot over the next 24 hours. And then it's a smaller one, and we didn't even really have that much time to touch on it with Sahadev Sharma when we spoke, but some movement with the Jays' top pitching prospects. So Ricky Tiedemann, Tommy John surgery, probably not back until 2026. He was their big name for a while. Before that, the big name that dominated in the prospect world for the Blue Jays, it was Nate Pearson. Nate Pearson and Forrest Whitley were like 2 of the best pitching prospects I saw in my 15 years really covering prospects. And both of them have been bit by injury and just underperformance. So anyway, Pearson, who has not been good, moves over to the Chicago Cubs, and they'll see if they can get him right. Probably, more of a long-term thing, like, hey, can we find it for this guy? But anyway, just some Jays movement going on. They also traded Yimi Garcia. We didn't get to that one too. He goes to the Mariners. He's really good.
I'm just going to say this for the record, and I know it's Jimmy.
I did hear Jimmy the other day. Yeah, see, the problem is, here's my problem.
It was Jimmy, and it's Jimmy now.
Some guys will switch or they'll let everyone know. I don't always get that memo. So
no, I know, but I had the Mariners. He pitched on Saturday. Aaron Goldsmith was my partner.
Yep.
He came in, and he's like, Jimmy. And I said, isn't it Yimmy? And he goes, no, it's Jimmy now.
Now it's Jimmy.
And I was like, you got it.
Okay.
You would know. You're the Mariners. You're the Mariners play-by-play
Exactly.
guy.
I don't work for teams. I don't work for leagues, any of that stuff anymore. So I don't know. I don't keep up with all of that stuff. But good. We'll call him whatever he wants.
Yeah.
You like that one for the M's? I mean, they had Stanek. They clearly are like, all right, Garcia's another level for us and worth acquiring, but then we need to bounce an arm out of here.
Yeah. I think he's good. He's closed.
Yeah.
I mean, they have Munoz, Santos, Garcia at the back end, the 3 righties. That's 3 pretty darn good. Teams, the Astros didn't think Stanek was a late inning guy. I think Kratz will agree. Clearly, the Mariners didn't think he was a 7th, 8th inning high leverage guy. I mean, he does good like 5th and 6th, you know, but the 7th, 8th, 9th, he can get a little shaky. So I think this is a good move. It gives him another high leverage guy at the end of the game.
If he's healthy, because he's had quite a few issues too. I know he's back now, but
this is a Jerry move.
Yeah.
Add to subtract to add, and to me, nothing blips my Mariners radar unless it's unless it's Vlad Jr. playing first base for the M's.
I just don't think
he's
will
got to
trade
make
him.
a move. He's got to make. He's made more moves than entire divisions since he's been with the Mariners during the same time. More trades.
Can I try to come up with other ideas for you then? Like, what about Yandy Diaz?
Fine.
Or Luis Robert?
Ryan Mountcastle. If his name was out there, like, get into some of your pitching that the O's would want. Some of your pitching, like, what moves it to get Ryan Mountcastle? What moves it to get? I get Vlad's not happening. I need to place that, or else I'm going to get crushed for saying Vlad should get traded. But to me, it's two teams that are at spots where they have extreme needs and want to compete. So let's get it done.
Yeah, the Blue Jays are blowing it. I mean, it doesn't even sound like they took many calls to find out what he would be worth, because they didn't want that to get spread around. Because clearly they're still trying to keep Vladdy long term. Like, to me, it sounded like the Tigers said, we're not going to trade Skubal most likely, but let's get the house appraisal like Kratz mentioned last week. With Vladdy, it doesn't even sound like they're interested in finding out what he would be worth via trade. So if he doesn't end up signing a long-term deal with them, then they really screwed themselves long-term. Just funny to see the Blue Jays and the Rays take such different directions when the Blue Jays are the worst team. And the Rays are like, we're going to completely reload.
The Rays are the best. Read Ken's article today. The Rays are the best at this.
Right, because they always stay up here.
Because they know how to move guys and get value back, and then they know what they're looking for. So they've kind of mastered this now over time. Now, granted, they haven't won the big prize yet, but they're always competitive. They're always there, and they're always kind of ahead of the curve, which is cool. And they've lost a ton of guys. Friedman, this guy, that guy.
Their front office. Yeah, Bendix is running the Marlins now.
Yeah, but I mean, if you like walk into the Trop and you breathe the air, all of a sudden you're a hot commodity. I mean, if you just walk into whoever's office and you're like, I took a breath. Okay, now I'm the GM of the whoever's.
They have better oxygen there.
They must. They must. It's like a casino. They pump in the oxygen.
Yeah,
and just into the GM office.
After this trade deadline, can the Blue Jays announce that Ross Atkins got fired? After this trade deadline, if he does nothing, like, is that not the play?
Well, he's going to do stuff. It's just the rentals, right? He traded Danny Jansen. We didn't get to that one either. Red Sox get a backup catcher. Hasn't hit great this year, but has the numbers in the past.
He did good enough to win his playing time from Alejandro Kirk.
True. Yeah, well, that whole situation did not end well. They kept they traded the wrong
Moreno
catcher.
instead of
Yeah. All right, let's slap because there's something funny with the Rays we want to show you. Just a quick appreciation for Randy Rosarena. We broke down the trade if you want to see us talk all about it on Friday, but it continued because Friday night the Rays had a game, and before he left to go join the Mariners, he spent a few innings in the ballpark, sitting, watching the game, high-fiving everyone, hanging with his cute little kid, just having a time with fans that love him. You have to remember, he's not just a top 3 entertainer in our sport in terms of fan interaction. He also was one of the biggest postseason legends of our generation. I mean, I know it was during the COVID season, but what he did to Major League pitching in 2020 in October was disgusting. He was Babe Ruth in the modern game for 1 month.
Okay, so I got something, because obviously I did the game on Saturday's first game. Okay, I asked Scott Service about this in the dugout. You get manager meeting. I said, "Hey Scott, like, as a player, I'm like, what is happening? Why is he not in Chicago Friday night? He's at the Trop watching the game." He goes, "Listen." He goes, "Here's what happened." He gave me the story. It was great. He goes, "They got in late. I think they came from Toronto. They got in late. They had a customs issue. They got in at like 3 a.m. into Tampa, okay? Then it was Friday morning. They got in at like 3 a.m. By the time he found out about the trade and everything, it was like 3:30 in the morning because they were, whatever. By the time they talked to him and the Mariners got a hold of him, blah, 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 blah. So it was like 6 or something, whatever happened. And then they were like, "Listen, just take the day. We'll see you on Saturday."
Yeah.
So, and I was like, because wouldn't the Mariners be a little mad that and they ended up killing the White Sox that game? But still, And he said, no, we didn't know that he was going to go do what he did, but I was kind of like, and he was like, no, we're cool. He had the day, and now he got to get his family and everything taken care of, and they came on Saturday. But Mariners were totally okay with this. Obviously, the Rays were great with it, and Randy was great with it. It was kind of cool.
It was great.
But when I first saw this, I was like, wait a second here. Like, this is wrong.
He should be on a plane.
But then when I heard what had happened, they couldn't have gotten him there in time. They didn't want him to come in at in the middle of the game. So they were like, listen, just get here tomorrow morning. We understand you're tired. Take the day. And they were also probably like, yeah, we're beating the White Sox 8-0 in the first. We don't really care.
Yeah, Jerry DiPoto, or president of baseball operations for the Mariners, said it's the best at-bats he's seen. I'm like, is it because Randy's coming and they're excited, or because they're facing some minor league level pitching? It is what it is. We're on for hours tomorrow. Don't miss it. Thanks, FT fam. Hey, we're still here for the YouTube group. If you're watching us for the first time or you're not here often, welcome. And please subscribe to our channel. We're on live every single day, every day live, 1 o'clock Eastern. That includes the off season too. When you're looking to find out what your team's going to do, who are they going to sign, who are they going to trade for, this is the spot. We are going to be on from 3 to 6:30 Eastern tomorrow. We'll be on potentially before that if anything crazy happens. Kratz, you got something for slap hands?
Here's
that we
the
didn't
pick.
get to? And Kratz hats too. Do both.
All right. Kratz hats, easy one. All the trays, I had to wear my Rays hat. Raise up.
Perfect.
Raise up. But here's my pick from this weekend, which my son went to. Now take a look at where the foul line is. The right side. Not even talking about the grass. Don't even talk about the dead grass. It's hot in North Carolina. Look in fair territory. What do you see there, AJ? In fair territory.
A fence.
A fence in the middle. Never have I ever seen a fence in the middle. And the best part was there was a puddle right there. If you can see it through the fence, there was a pile of sand that would have matched the piles of sand or the dirt, dead grass that's all around it, about 10 feet to the left of this picture that they could have filled that hole in with, but they did not. And this was at the Dynamic Baseball Tournament. It was a UNC-NC State tournament and didn't play a single game at UNC or NC State until the finals yesterday. So there it is. Orange fence in play. If the ball goes in there, ground rule double.
Awesome. We once played a game at our rival in Orlando, Bishop Moore. Their field sucks so bad, it still sucks. Once we had a guy slide and home plate came up all the way, like it was turf, so the home plate, when the guy slid, ripped it up all the way. Another kid came in and slid. The umpire's like, how do I make a call? Because the whole turf was flipped over from the first kid sliding, right? And the same game, they had cones in the outfield where there was a hole in the outfield. So they took 4 cones in left center and put them to warn the outfielders, like, don't run here. So there was 4 cones in a circle around a big hole. I'm like, what are we doing?
That's bad. We need to expose these crimes on social media so they get fixed.
I mean, I want to know, was that a showcase your son went to?
What the heck?
Who's
putting that on? Whoever's in charge of that field
I don't even want to know
allowed.
how much you paid to go to that, too. It wasn't free.
Me? No. It was just games. It was just a tournament.
Oh, okay.
Just a tournament? Yeah, but whoever's running that field, they're in trouble. That's not okay. Dodgers territory is coming up next, so more trade talk continues, and that includes Steve Phillips joining us. Also, former GM, all over the scene. Going to break down some trade rumors. He'll talk about that 3-way trade with the Dodgers, the Cardinals, and the White Sox, which is kind of the freshest one out there right now. And then what's next? Alana and Clint are ready to go, ready to ride the roller coaster. Okay, so enjoy that one. It's live every Monday and Thursday. Noontime, lunchtime on the West Coast, and obviously 3 o'clock here as we just hit 3. So we'll say goodbye and then get ready for a very, very crazy trade deadline day. Even if something happens tonight, though, it'd have to be big, though. It's got to be big. If you're coming on here and you're looking for Joe Schmo reliever, we'll talk about it tomorrow. But if something crazy happens, we're here. Yes?
Need to think about the minor league guys right now. They're playing with 8 to 9 guys on the roster because so many prospects are getting pulled out of games these days. Fortunately, today they're off. Tomorrow, the games suck.
But they're kind of interesting because you got to play, and maybe you even have to play a different position.
Mm-hmm.
It might be that one day.
Totally.
Yeah.
All the catchers are out there in the field.
We're on for hours on Tuesday, and Baseball America Hot Sheet will be on after all of that. So subscribe to FT, subscribe to Dodgers Territory, stay here, and we'll flip you over to that show.